there are times where I've seen interviews with yourself and various other actors too, where whenever they're discussing on a project that you guys are promoting, one of the biggest things I've always seen with a lot of actors, with and myself included, where I've seen how the promotion it gets handled. But lately, because the internet has become so open, I would say that there's a lot more looseness to it, where you can talk freely to some extent and reveal certain things that may not tarnish the product, but at the same time give some honest opinions about, well, I don't think it's the greatest thing I've ever done, but it's fun enough. Whereas before, it was not always the case where you can really always do that. So because you've been at a point in your career where you have started where, because you were at that time on a popular show, and then you were also added on with Stargate down the line, there have been some things that I've noticed as the years have gone by, where promoting and then the honesty with the promotion has changed a lot. And I'm wondering if you feel that if in time, if things have gotten better for you to be able to speak more freely with regards to the projects you worked on. Now, I understand there are some things that people are going to work on that you don't want to give any bad impression, because you want people to see it and hopefully enjoy it, and then in turn get some returns. But I also want to know if you feel like if something has changed along the way where the promotion side of things has been either more open for you guys to just express what you really feel without hurting anyone's feelings, or I'm hoping the questions make sense, and I apologize for the elongated question, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from here with that.
Sure. I mean, of course, the dynamics of the industry from when I started in 1986 professionally has changed tremendously from, just from the streaming side of things, and the amount of platforms that are available, and the amount of material that's needed and wanted by the industry now. There's a lot of things that have changed somewhat for the better, in some ways also for the worse. The digitization of the industry has affected the kind of personal quality that it used to have back in the day, when you would audition for roles live in front of people and be able to get feedback immediately and start to have relationships with casting directors and eventually directors and producers and whatnot. And that doesn't really exist anymore, at least not in the organic way that it used to when I was growing up in the industry. As far as the promotion of film and television shows now, I mean, the studios and networks, this is another thing that's affected the artist in a lot of ways, is because it has where at one time the mystery of the artist was senior to what was really seen in the media. In fact, a lack of knowing much about you was even to a greater degree more beneficial to your career than having an oversaturation of your life all over the place, everything that you're up to, everywhere you're going, what kind of food you're eating, what you're doing for exercise. All of these things, used to just be little interview points and little tidbits of information that were utilized to, create a well-rounded interview on a TV show or magazine or whatever the case may be. And now the networks and studios will take a look at what your social media presence is,
Yeah.
and take that into consideration for the casting side of things as well.
Right.
Now, how much of that they take into consideration, is hypothetical, because I don't know, but I do know that it's taken into consideration. And then and what that does is it creates this panicked, sort of anxiety ridden sense of need to create this identity for yourself in the social media world that's constantly being updated, constantly being upgraded, constantly having attention paid to it, and new material put out there, and this, that, the other. And if you're not doing that, then essentially you don't exist. You're a non-existence, you know. And then the industry and its in its laissez-faire attitude is preferring to lean in the direction of somebody perhaps less talented but more well-known and more active in social media than somebody who might be far more talented in the long run, but doesn't have that kind of presence or type of disposition, personal disposition to want to spend, or rather even waste, that much of somebody's personal and private time, you know, updating this fictional character of oneself that exists on the internet. You know what I mean? It's a tool, it's a vehicle, but you know, the idea that it's all encompassing now and is now obsessive and compulsive by nature, and that you know, people get anxiety over how many likes they're getting, how many people they're looking at their views. Well, oh my God, last time I posted something about whatever, I got 300 likes, and now I posted this and I'm only getting 100 likes, and should I start posting more of that? And what's you know, and that just this insanity that has nothing to do with the creative arts, that has nothing to do with being an actor or a writer or a musician or a director or a producer or any of the other, you know, hats that you wear in the arts and entertainment industry, you know. But now to some degree, especially for those who are on the stage, so to speak, those with the frontline presence, more of that is expected from those behind the scenes. You know what I mean? And so when I was doing network shows, like Parker Lewis, for instance, there's an entire machine behind it on a network and studio level in the PR department. And then I had my own machine. I had my own PR rep that I was working with at the time. And so I'm doing all of the magazine interviews and the talk shows and whatever else, the MTV this and the appearances and the special events and the charities and the red carpets and all of the stuff, you know. And you're basically just kind of given these sort of breakdowns of whatever it is you're there for. I mean, you're showing up for charity events. You don't even know what it is. You know what I mean? You're just sort of shoveled in there, and, you know, or you show up to do a photo shoot, and the clothes they've picked out for you are just are outrageous. You would never in a million years walk out onto the streets dressed in this buffoonery, but yet you're expected to wear it because it's what they want for this photo shoot. And instead of posing the way that you normally and naturally would pose in life, you know, they want you to pretend like you're Superman on a bar stool, or leap in the air and, like, you know, shout like everything's fantastic or whatever it is, you know. And as a young actor, I fell victim to a lot of that. And you become a dancing monkey for, you know, for the networks and the studios to draw attention to the products. And I think that there's an element of that which is very important to engage in, but the machine had kind of taken over itself. It didn't even know what it was doing anymore. You know what I mean? It was just grabbing actors and throwing them in costumes and asking them ridiculous questions and sending them on dates with people they don't even know, because they're represented by, you know, the same PR rep, and they both want, you know, they want publicity for both of these actors. So they send them on a blind date and make sure the TMZ is there, or they have another actor from another TV show on a studio level or on a network level, and they end up out in the pics, and all these things. A lot of it is completely and totally fabricated. You know, I'm not saying that real relationships don't come out of that sometimes, as they do, but at the same time, the totally fabricated and unorganic nature of it all is what really kind of steered me further away from that side of the industry. industry and doing more direct promotional stuff in this new age format of podcast and long form shows, where you're not beholden to a network that wants an anecdote within the first 3 minutes to get a laugh out of the audience, and wants to structure what your interview is going to be, beginning, middle, and end, so that everybody knows, not only the talk show host, but and the producers know, and the director of the show knows. Everybody knows what this interview is going to be before it even happens.
Right.
But yet you're out there pretending that it's something new. That's why sometimes when you watch some interviews with actors who go off script, and suddenly, Jim Carrey's notorious for doing it. Some of the stand-up comedians are more notorious for doing it. Is that they'll do whatever the stated interview is because they know what this shtick is, and they'll do whatever the stated interview is, and then when they get onto the show, they'll reverse engineer the interview and go completely off script, and you'll see the panic in the eyes of the person doing the interview. They don't know what to do. The really sharp ones will roll with it, and it's fun and it's good, and your Jon Stewarts, who don't exist anymore. That level of talk show host who can really run with the punches and also broke the mold and wasn't as cookie cutter and conformed as many of the other late night show hosts were. But I think that nowadays, because of the nature of podcasting and how big podcasters have become in comparison to mainstream media, they dwarf them in their reach. I think that it leaves a lot of room for independent film, independent television productions to get a really, really good amount of attention on their product. Now the only difficulty is finding the platform that wants to benefit the artists as well, and not just the corporatocracy and the technocracy of the machine. Whereas if you do get something finished independently and you platform it yourself, the deals are so horrible. The back end deals, the points that you're getting, you don't even know. Not only that, they don't show you how many views your product is getting. There's no open accounting. You don't know what's going on. It's a big mystery sandwich. It's just shut up and trust me. You know what I mean? And so if you are platforming it yourself, plus when you look at the minuscule percentage that they're actually giving you per view, do I have 80 years to make my money back on this indie film? Is this for real? And so and then what they're paying for movies now, even though producers like myself and others know how much money there is to be made and is being made and not being revealed, they're offering absolute garbage deals for really great films and saying, oh, well, we can't guarantee this, that, the other, how much it's going to knowing damn well that they're going to make, a really great profit on it. And they're not going to show you that profit. They're going to show you a loss.
Well,
it's scandalous. The system's scandalous. It's rigged against us. And until the distribution side, I don't know if it's me and some people or whatever, until somebody breaks the mold and makes it artist friendly and does a legitimate ad rev share and does an open book accounting and shows how many views there are and does everything out in the open and makes a fair cut for a fair wage for a fair day's labor to everybody involved, that will be the game-changing platform that causes a huge shift in the overall dynamics of how do we as independent artists make money outside of the system, deliver it to an independent platform that can deliver us a profit that allows us to continue doing that.
Well, so what's interesting though, because you actually said a lot of things that I was kind of wanting to delve into, but what's interesting for me is that because when you said something that actually reminded me of someone that I have spoken with in the past, Mark Savage, And he had literally said to, I'm not sure if he said it to me or he said it to somebody else, but he had said that he had distributors literally tell him, we don't care if the film is bad. We have the name actor. It was clearly obvious. It was just purely a business decision. Like, we just need the actor there to sell the
Yeah, the
movie, and that's good
pre-sales
enough.
thing is
Right.
diabolical. The whole pre-sale, the concept of pre-sales, meaning that because of who's attached and the genre that the film is, they can go out and get a guarantee of sale for some amount, and that
Right.
helps buffer. Then you can go to a bank, get a bank loan, or get some angel
Right.
investors, or this, that, the other, and you say,
Mhm.
"Oh, this big promise of distribution has." And none of that equals a return on investment. None of that equals profit or guarantee of profit at all. And what it does is it lessens the overall value of the creative side of filmmaking, and the desire to put the best people in the roles for the way the script is written, to bring it to life in such a way that it's so vivid that the audience member gets lost in it and believes that it's real and is transported for that amount of time to another time and space outside of their own sufferings and traumas of life and all the other crap they're dealing with. They want to escape for that amount of time. And if you can do that and do it well, you don't need to have known people in it. What you need to have is
Well,
great films with great storylines that are
right.
very well done, that are very well performed. And if you happen to have somebody who has some caliber that can come in and do a great performance and help with that, with escalating it to that next level of notoriety, I think that that's a fantastic opportunity. I just think it's a shame that we rely on that more so than just casting for a good film. And listen, as a producer, a writer and producer myself, I've been stuck in that same exact situation. Fortunately for me, I've been in the industry for such a long period of time. I know a lot of actors who are on some of those lists, and I know that their level of talent, and I know that they're overlooked as much as many other actors are being overlooked. And I'm able to actually reach out to them and say, hey, look, between you and, like, I have a film coming out here in the next month or so, or a couple of months, called Deadly Justice. That's a nice little thriller, female driven thriller.
Hmm.
And we got the financing because we had the right attachments. So myself and Brian Krause and my buddy Jason London
Right.
and Kelly Sullivan, a wonderful actress with a good name recognition, and Christiana Lucas, and then with the right little group of people, even though the film was only a $200,000 budget, you won't know that when you see it on screen, because we had a really solid director, a really great little team of filmmakers, and a solid, simple storyline that was easy to follow and easy to bring to the screen. Another problem with many of the scripts that are packaged and sold ahead of time is that the script will be way overwritten for the budget. You'll read some script, it's like, an action film, it's a $500,000 budget, but it's got 15 car chases, 14 explosions,
Right.
12 shootouts, 13 fight scenes, and they want to shoot it in 2 weeks. Or whatever, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
or when I was doing the sci-fi movies, you get these $500,000-$600,000 budgets, and in the script there's 80 plus CGI shots,
Yeah.
and you have a 500 600, that's 500 $600,000. That's not even enough to do the CGI
Yeah.
for 80 or 90 CGI shots in a full-length feature. Not even close.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not even doing the principal photography and making. That's why we would shoot these over in Bulgaria or down
Right.
in Belize or someplace where the 600,000 turned into 1,600,000 or 1,800,000, or whatever. You know what I mean, in the local currency.
Well, but explain to me then about one thing, that because here's a thing that I've noticed before, because I've had this conversation on a few occasions, but I'm really interested in getting your perspective, because you've actually been on both sides of the industry when it comes to indie and more or less mainstream. But one thing I've noticed before that I'm picking up on now. Like, so I've talked to Jonathan Southcott before, and it's interesting now where he pointed out before that what was available for him now wasn't available for him 10 years ago, which is getting actors that he really wanted to work with, like the Danny Trejos and things that, actors of that sort that, many years ago he probably would have never gotten to their footstep. Now he's able to reach out to them because they're they're marquee actors in more or less the indie scenes where they are able to generate interest. But what I'm pointing out here specifically has to do with the fact that, like, for example, you see a guy like James Gunn, who is heading DC Studios, and that's a big deal because he's a comic book fan, makes films that generate interest, and his films actually are really good. But at the same time, he's also doing something that a lot of us as fans never had before, which is interacting with a guy of that caliber on social media. People are reaching out, hey, James, is the following true? And he'll reply, no. In time, we will reveal the upcoming news about whatever. That's a very, very rare thing. Now, 10, 20 years ago, that was never the thing. You will never get Steven Spielberg to respond that way, despite, how well liked he is as far as the public's concerned. That to me is a really interesting turn of events here, because if one guy who is in such a high caliber position is interacting with the everyday folks, if you will, to me, I always figured that it's just a matter of time. It could be decades, but it's just a matter of time where the guys like the James and Joe Russos, the guys who directed the Avenger films, guys who grew up reading the stuff, watching stuff, that are now taking these positions. They're not in the positions where, like, the studio heads are in the positions where they're clearly just businessmen, as you pointed out before. I do hope that in time, and I do think in time, that we'll get the fans that understand the hard work that the actors, the writers, the directors are going through, that will one day take up those positions. And, we saw that with Disney recently, where Bob Chapek took over as CEO after Bob Iger retired. There's a big downfall that occurred where it was a lot more product, but a lot less caliber product, if you will. And then once he was let go, Bob Iger takes over, and now they're saying we're going to take a step back with producing quality product now. But there's a lot more to be regained from the public's interest to get excited for Disney products anymore, including Marvels or whatever else.
Yeah, I
That
think.
being
Well, I
said,
mean, I think what happens there, just on a corporate level, when you get monsters that are so big,
right,
and they have these stakeholders that they got, shareholders they
right,
got to be so responsible to. They got these gigantic brands that they're trying to keep up with, and then they have whatever their socio-political
yeah,
dispositions
yeah,
are
that too,
leaning towards,
yeah,
which the Hollywood has always had politics play to some degree or another within the scope of what's
yeah,
radiating out of Hollywood. Even
yeah,
if you go back to the propaganda films in the lead up to World War II, during World War II, and the propaganda films during the Cold War, all the stuff, just stuff making Russia, bad, all this,
yeah,
anything that could be done to help kind of support whatever this other machine is. There certainly has been an ugly cross pollination of needs and wants between I think politics and Hollywood, and now we have whatever this sort of this new age sort of transhumanist movement type thing that's happening, where we see in dystopic movies like Blade Runner
right,
and other futuristic films of that nature. When we paint, there's tons of them more recently. You know
right.
what I mean?
And
These kind of things are somewhat. I mean, when you go back and read like Brave New World by Aldous Huxley or 1984 by H.G. Wells, you come to realize, like, is this predictive programming type of stuff we're getting into, or is the art, the entertainment, the stories that are coming out of this world of academia, which is really what it is, these explorations in where the human race is evolving towards, all comes out of the intelligent class, so-called the intelligent
Right.
class, the Ivory Tower crew. And what are their dreams and postulates that they have for the future? Like, like they're the fortune tellers of old, you know what I mean? The gypsy
Right.
fortune teller on the corner saying that this is what it's going to be like down the road, when in reality, if you allow for an organic, soulful approach toward human evolution, without the mass manipulation of people, places, and events by outside forces, which are human
Right.
forces, they're just made up to be these, you can't tell what it's a propaganda machine, you know what I
Right.
mean? And then the propaganda spills out from this side with art, this side with music, this side with print and media, and this side with, and it just goes across the whole board. It's that idea that everything that the artist is doing has to be filtered down to fit whatever is preconditioned to be inside this box. And if
Right.
on a studio and network level, all of those filters are through all of the executives and the different teams of executives, and what are their objectives for that particular team?
Yeah.
Is their objective inclusivity? Is this one's objective, to get more superhero stuff going on out there? Is this one to do more who knows what all of the moving parts are, but they all come together, and out the other end of that is just some product
Right.
that's got all of these fingers in it, all of these, all these different imprints in it. And we don't know how organic that product is to the actual creative process, or to the artist that originally thought of it. Or is it even thought of by an artist? Is it almost not artificial intelligence created to the degree that they program something into a computer and out comes what they think that the world wants? But in the same fashion, that happens in the executive boardroom, when you have 13 guys who've never written a script in their life, who've never acted in a play in their life, who've never painted a painting in their life, who've never taken an artistic photo in their life, but have law degrees and have come up through business and this, that, and the other, and now we're somehow in an executive level of a creative arts in entertainment industry,
Right.
and are making these huge long-term choices for what the world wants. And they're all sitting there together, throwing out ideas. They're like, hey, well, what's the cool thing now? Well, I don't know. This is what I just saw when I was at the beach today. These kids were playing with a Frisbee that was square. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's it. That's the new thing, square Frisbees. Next thing you know, there's a movie about square Frisbees. There's a TV show about square Frisbees. There's news reports about square Frisbees. The president's wearing carrying a square Frisbee around with him in the Rose Garden and whatever. You know what I mean? And suddenly the square Frisbee becomes the new thing.
But do you think though? But do you think though?
When it's not even organic.
But do you think though that you'll ever, you think, at least in our lifetime, that we'll ever see like more of let's say the higher ups, is as far as studios concerned, films and TV is concerned, that we'll probably have like a neutral standpoint where what's good out right now, let's do some research, we'll figure out what's working, but we'll also take chances as well too. Because one thing I remember from like the 70s, like Scorsese even talked about this as well too, if I recall correctly, where studios exec would just take chances on a writer and a director, say, what ideas do you have? It's about, I have this idea about X, Y, and Z. All right, well, if you can get it done for X amount of money and get this actor, we'll shoot the film.
Yes.
Nowadays, it doesn't seem that way at all, for obvious reasons, for which you just kind of pointed out here before. But do you think we'll ever get back to that, where the risk is, they'll take a calculated risk? Because nowadays it's like, there was a new movie from Matthew Vaughn, Argyle, which Apple spent $200 million, but no one saw it in theaters. I'm like, where does that money go to and how are they so confident that this will do well enough for them to say we can spend $200 million on it, but no one saw it. So like
Yeah,
it's a very weird position that we're in right now, or that I'm seeing right now. But I'm wondering, in time, do you think that we'll see that the right people that understand, that knows the hard work, and they themselves probably experience it as well too, will be the ones making decisions about how we're going to do this right without blowing up our budget, without, unless it's absolutely necessary.
well, I mean, this is a discussion that I've had, and more internally with other producers, and this exact quandary, and how do you solve this? And again, it really boils down to the distribution side of it, and how is that money divvied up? See,
Right.
the nature of the beast when it comes to studios and networks is their overhead. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like they're just paying a couple of shekels for a corner shop. They got studios, they got storage facilities, they got wardrobe houses, they got tons of staff, they got accounting departments, they got this, they got janitorial departments, for God's sake. They got it's just the list of paychecks that it takes to keep those bigger companies alive and operating, in the way that they expect themselves to operate. Uh, Especially when you go to those studios, they're spotless. You could eat off the ground. You know what I mean? The cafeterias are delicious. They got great little coffee shops in there. They're like little cities. You know what I mean? And
Right.
they're magical places. And in order to keep that veneer up, it costs a ton. So the whole system would have to break down on a level that I don't think they'd be willing to strip it that raw, because you don't need all of that excess. Not the way that they've been doing it. I don't believe that you need all of that excess, but if the profit margin is a fair shake between those who are making the films and those who are distributing the films, what do you think is more complicated to do? Do you think it's more complicated to write a script, do all the pre-production, all the location scouting, all the casting, the wardrobe, the production design, this, that, the other, the filming of the whole entire thing, all of the post-production and the editing of it, and the music and the score and the sound, all the way down to where it's a deliverable film? Or the person who takes that and puts it on and into a machine and hits play? Who has the more difficult job? And who's getting the lion's share of the return on that? The people who put it in the machine and hit play, not the
Yeah.
filmmakers and all the people who slaved and did all of the hard work to get it to that point. It's a grotesque reversal of profit, where the machine has decided that it deserves more than the one who runs the machine.
Interesting point.
And until somehow, some way, in whatever type of altruistic fervor that an executive class type of mentality needs to have in order to develop a fair shake platform, where you know exactly what you're getting, where it's coming from, and therefore can have a fair shake with those people who are working with you, meaning you can set up residual income deals with all of your crew and cast and everybody else outside of the traditional system, by platforming it on some type of fair share platform, where once it's up there, every single person who worked on the film has some percentage stake in how many views that thing gets. The more views it gets, the more ad rev it gets. The more ad rev it gets, the more residual income you get. And that goes across the board, from the executive producer down to the craft service person. Those kind of things can be set up and established where every single person across the board makes more than enough to get by, and makes more than enough to make sense out of making more films for a platform that operates like that. It's just the group that runs the platform can't be greedy.
So here's what I'm curious about with you though, because when you're working on these several projects that you are producing, writing, in whatever capacity you're working in, do you? I guess what I'm trying to focus on here is because you're going through that experience for yourself. I'm wondering if you have any sort of, not disdain, but like I guess realizing the not just the hard work, but more or less about the way the system is set up. Because to me, it almost seems like you have some frustration behind the way things are working. But going through the motions here and seeing how you're getting in the trenches with the various people that you're working on these projects here, and seeing how everything's put together, and then working out some deals to get the film released. Sometimes people have said it before that making a film is a miracle, whether it be good or bad. If you can make a film, that's one thing, but if you can get it
Yeah.
out there, that's a whole different ball game in itself. But with that being said, though, I'm wondering if because you've had that experience as of late, more, I would say, probably think from what I read from your IMDb page, that you have more experience with behind the scenes stuff. That I'm wondering if your perspective for not just for yourself, but as far as your career is concerned, has changed about how you look at things more differently, whether it be on a more positive light, or maybe in a not so positive light, but you still have something that you want to, I guess. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you see something that can potentially be really worth your while, but you have to go through all of this for you to get there, to see if by the time you get to that end line, if it was even worth it. If that makes any sense. I hope that question
Yeah, I mean,
makes sense for you.
because I mean, who knows what value anything has at the end of the day when we're all 6 feet under. You
Right.
know what I mean?
True.
We have to make what value we can out of life here and now and present time, and each moment must consist of some type, in my opinion, some type of motivating factor that's deeper in meaning than just paying the bills and getting by, and for me, that motivating factor has to be spiritual in nature and quality. There cannot be any type of physical need, want, desire, or accomplishment that you can take with you beyond this world.
Right.
So the feeling, oh, this is great. Look at how many houses I got by the time I died. Look at how many cars. Look at how many pieces of jewelry. Look at all of the things. Now these can be great if you have the opportunity to leave them to someone else, and that other person that you're leaving them to can benefit off of the work that you've done, and you can make their journey through life and their existence a lighter journey, and they don't have to take on the amount of burdens and responsibilities perhaps that we've had to take to get to that point, to hand something off to another generation that hopefully they won't squander. You know what I mean? I mean, that's you don't know, but you're going to assume that they're not going to, and you're going to hope for the best, and you're going to do what you can, and you're going to leave it for them so that they don't have to go through all of the struggles, the trials and tribulations, and all of the other things. That's the ultimate goal and desire. But at the end of the day, what do we leave with? To me, I feel like the only thing that we can leave with is the feeling that we did the best that we could do, not just for ourselves, but for everyone else around us. The greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics in the universe, be that it not just the human dynamic, but the dynamic of the natural world, of nature, I mean, are we just litter bugs? Do we just go around throwing our litter all over the place? Or do we clean up after ourselves when we leave the beach? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
My wife is fanatical about the recycling thing, and neither one of us know where that recycling goes. We haven't followed the truck. We haven't made sure that it gets recycled like they say it does. But because it's like, hey, we can at least do that. There's something, every single tiny little thing that each individual can do can fractal into a much better living environment for all of us to wander around in. and then and that has to do with the, how safe do we feel? How do we feel in our own neighborhoods? Do you
Right.
feel like when you walk outside your house, are you like, yo, Tommy just got shot down the street yesterday, and little Sally's mom just got kneecapped the other day, and neither one of them were involved in anything, man. I'm just going to stay inside and play video games.
Yeah.
What's the environment that's been created for us? And all of these things are created things, and they can all be uncreated, but that's through agreement and through communication. When you have I've seen it in this, I can't remember if it's in Chicago or Detroit. I think it might be Chicago, but there was and I'm not Muslim or anything like that, but there was a group of 5%ers who went in there into one of the most crime-ridden areas that they could find, and they started turning, the men and women around by awakening themselves to the fact that they're a spiritual being that's living in a physical body, and it's up to them to take care of themselves and their environment. And they turned what was once one of the most dangerous 2 or 3 blocks in the area into the safest within a couple of years. And that's how we as individuals can take control over our own environments and make them better, is just through group agreements. And that can be done across the board, no matter what your religious preference is. If people want to get out there and make their community better, they can do it. But it has to start individually, and I think artistically it's the same. We really put out a lot of, and I'm guilty of it as well, a lot of garbage out there, just absolute garbage that's doing nothing for the elevation of humanity
When you're
in any
saying
way, shape,
garbage, what
or
do you
form.
mean specifically garbage?
In
Talking about
terms
like
of
films?
stories in terms of stories that aren't doing, all the horror movie stuff,
Oh, I
Saw
see. Okay.
series, and this, that, and just absolute, just garbage. The Grand Theft Auto of movies. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Just garbage video
Sure.
games, garbage movies. What are you going to expect to see? You got garbage hip hop, you got murder rap, you got kids. So they're listening to murder rap, they're playing Grand Theft Auto, and they're watching horror movies. What do you think the kid is going to turn out like after 10, 15 years of that? Do you think, and with a lack of education on top of it, only the sharpest of the tools in the shed are going to be able to slither through that without ending up in jail?
True.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you're saying. There's something, there's this actually, because you said something that really sparked my interest about you as a person, because you, to me, you come off as like someone that reflects on the various things you do in your life, because you talked about just now how you are, there's some things you've done that, that's not, it's you consider as garbage, but what I'm curious with you now is that, have you ever gone back to revisit any of your stuff, whether it be good stuff or bad stuff, or if, let alone, let's say, interviews, for example? Because like I've come across your interviews from way back in the '90s, and like I said before in the beginning, that to me you came off very, very more or less mature, very what's the word I wanted to use? Like you had a really good head on your shoulders, and even to this, even as I'm talking to you right now, like I still see that same more or less person, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Why I started in the industry, with a firm foundation as
right,
an actor in theater companies, workshops,
right,
all of that. That was where my grounding came into play, and I was raised within the industry as well. My mother was a graphic designer in the
right,
music business and theater business. I was raised going to rock concerts and plays and musicals. My father was a production designer in film and television. He was art director on Goonies. He was
right.
and The Abyss, and he was production designer on Terminator 2 and Twister and The Saint, The Shadow, Patriot Game. Just a list. It goes on and on and on. I've been on sets with him when I was young, before I'd even become an actor. And I understood the professional nature of what it took to carry out creating an event, a play, a musical, a rock concert. We used to show up. I was amazed when we showed up. I think it was what was an Asia show back in the day. It might have been the late '70s, early '80s. I can't remember whenever Asia's big album came out, if it was their first or second or whatever. But we showed up and they were performing at the Omni, if I recall correctly, in Atlanta. And they had all these raising and lowering platforms, these hydraulic platforms, so that the drum kit could go up like this, and then it'd go down, and then the guy playing the guitar could go up and go down and all this. And we were there, like, you know, while they were still setting up and the big doors were open and they're moving all this equipment in, and there's guys on walkie-talkies and they're all wearing reflective vests, and they're like all like, oh wait, watch out, be careful, you know, setting everything up. And it was just like a military operation. Even that was mind-blowing to me. If I hadn't become an actor, I would have gotten involved in some other element of the arts and entertainment, whether it be something like that, you know, designing stages like my father, or doing graphic design like my mother, or directing or whatever. I mean, I write, produce, and I act primarily. I haven't done a lot of directing because I feel directing is something that has to be all inclusive for me, meaning I've done it where I've directed and acted at the same time and produced, and it's too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to stretch myself thin and have to lean on my director of photography and my editor and other people so much to tell a story that I'd rather have fully visualized. And if I'm starring in it and producing it and writing it and directing it, I just don't, you know, I'd rather just direct if I have when that opportunity arises again, and not act in it at all. But you know, anyway, I just think that to circle back around, I just think that the creative process, there is a way now in present time. It's not there yet. It doesn't exist yet. The platform isn't really there yet. The people aren't involved yet, but the stage is set for one of the most incredible revolutions and or evolutions of film and television platforming and distribution known to mankind, that could change the absolute paradigm of the whole thing just by making a fair exchange with the artists. You know, if the quality of product is as great as I believe it would turn out to be in the long run, even the people who are putting out their stuff on Netflix, on Amazon, on Paramount Plus, on HBO, Showtime, this, that, the other, who are getting this much of a share, who could suddenly get this much of a share of their hard work. If you don't think that they wouldn't switch teams real quick, you're wrong. You know what I mean? They would, and that's what it's going to take. And once that happens, then all of the other companies will have to start playing more fairly, and start opening up the pocketbook and start doing some open accounting, and start, you know, sharing the bread and the butter. You know what I mean?
One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because I've listened to a lot of your conversations you've had more or less throughout the years, starting from as far back as I can go, from the 90s and so on. And what was interesting for me is kind of what I was expecting to have with you right now, where I would ask a question and just have you just go more in depth about the thing. Because the thing with you that I picked up a lot was that if people really took the time to listen to you, you have something to say, and then it just expands further from whether it go from this angle to that angle. But there is always a follow, like a roundabout way of closing out with what you're trying to get across here. I find that extremely fascinating when you do that. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you as well, too, because I just want to get more in-depth information from what I think you have a really unique perspective of, that you seem pretty straightforward when it comes to the various things that people will come up ask you here. So I would love to have another conversation more in depth here about the various other things I want to delve into with you down the line. But with that said, though, one of the things that I also found extremely fascinating with your story was that a lot like with Lewis, the fact you've maintained in yourself in this industry for a number of years, I find it fascinating that despite the hardships that comes with this career, you guys still maintain that consistency, which is not a very easy task. Because you've talked before about how close you were working on some various projects that were within arm's length, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out. One was Dazed and Confused, which your buddy Jason London got the part because you just didn't understand. You read the script like this is terrible, but not knowing the fact that they're going to rewrite it with the actors involved, you had no idea. The other was Primal Fear with Ed Norton, but you had an ego thing at that time as well too.
Yeah.
Which, when I think about that, I'm like, imagine if he had done that, what would he have been the same person that I was listening to right now?
Definitely not.
The circumstances, right? So I always find those stories to be interesting because despite how close you were on very major pivotal projects, the career still remained consistent. But I always wonder where the person's mindset was when, if they hadn't gone through that, how would they have turned out? If they had gone through that, how they would have turned out. And despite the fact that I believe that you had a very strong mindset about how you conduct yourself as far as the professionalism and as far as how you are very more or less like an open book. If any of that would change, if you had, let's say, if you had been nominated for an Oscar like Ed Norton was, and the film was very well received, and he had again a lot of notoriety, and his career took off at that point. I don't know if there's something about you that would have changed it. And for someone like myself, or even someone like Gary, for that matter, like if you had that career changed at that momentum there for yourself, would you have ever met Gary and had Gary, recommended you for this part, and so on and so forth? So there's a lot of interesting angles that I find fascinating with your career.
To unpack that, to unpack that real quick in the wrap up here, the wrap up schmear, just that no one can ever really know what woulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda. You know what I mean? One thing, so all I can really reflect on is twofold. One, I made a conscious decision in my early 20s to not engage in the PR machine of Hollywood, and to do as limited amount of PR Hollywood shenanigans as I felt was necessary for me as an artist, to just live the life of the artist, which is all I've ever been interested in. The red carpet stuff, the glitz and the glam, and any of the other things that go along with it. Some people become absolutely obsessed with that, and that becomes the end all be all of the entire experience. And here they go traipsing through life, pretending to be this character that's a house of cards, that if it crashes around you, especially at a point when you have inflated your ego to such a grandiose degree that you believe it to be unpoppable, and somehow it pops and you're not ready for that, it's a psychological meltdown. It's a psychotic break potentially. And when I started studying with the last teacher that I studied with for the longest, Manu Tupou, I started studying with him in the early 90s all the way up until 2005, when he retired from teaching completely. But he really is the one that grounded me for life in terms of what is the artistic, what is the point of the artist, of living an artist's life. And it's really integrity is all he boiled it down to, is that if you don't have personal and artistic integrity, then you have nothing. And if you are believing yourself to be an actor, and you're going around life telling everybody that you're an actor, but you're not acting, then you're also delusional. So if you have grandiose ideas about yourself and you're running around, now, yes, sure, there's postulating, there's talking things, voicing things into existence and all of that. But then there's also insanity. There's a fine line between the two, where believing that you can talk something into existence, like faith without works is dead. Yes, you have to get out there and you have to talk things into existence, but you also have to do the physical work as well. And if your physical labor that you enjoy doing is called acting, well, then the only time that you can ever consider yourself an actor is when you're actually acting. That's it. There's no other time when you're being an actor. Now, in life, we're acting. We have personalities, we have characters that we put on, and we can change those up for different people and places and events. And sometimes you've had a rough day and you got to shake it off because you're about to walk into a social setting, and it's like, okay, you have a talk with yourself in the bathroom, like, look, I know I just lost my job. I know my car just got a flat tire and I got the little donut on it. And I know my girlfriend just dumped me, but I got to go into this job interview and put on game face. So this is all acting. That's all acting. All of these things are to a certain degree. So, you can make the experience of life, the life of the actor, you can make life your stage and you can perform throughout life. But if that performance isn't giving you a paycheck, then still you're not really acting, not professionally. You know what I'm saying? So, the point that I'm making is just that you can't be delusional as an actor or an artist in going out there making claims about oneself if you're not actively engaged in that which it is you claim to be doing. So, yes, I have been an actor in my life, and I have jobs that I have acted in, and I have future jobs that I will be acting in, and my career choice is as an actor when I'm acting. But when I'm not, I'm writing, I'm cleaning my house, I'm doing laundry, I'm trying to be a good husband to my beautiful wife, I'm trying to be a good dad or stepdad, or I'm just trying to live whatever decent life that I can live and give back to those around me as best I can, so that when I do reach the end of the road, that my heart can be weighed against a feather and hopefully will be balanced, and I can leave this world behind light, you know what I mean, and not burdened down and heavy with all of the crap, and that really has to do with how you treat others in the world around you and what your intentions are. If you have evil intentions in life and you're willing to do anything to get what you want in life, you're creating more and more weight, more and more of a burden, more and more, to let go of. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, people like that have to go through all of these different levels of psychological torment and hell as they're crossing through to be reborn again, Whereas if you already kind of get wind of this ahead of time, you can start stripping away all of those potential sufferings when we have to go through the great void beyond. That's what I think that everybody should be thinking about, to some degree, not in some morbid sense, but in the sense that, listen, that's going to happen. What can I do now to prepare for that moment? So that when it does happen, it's not a shock and a jarring experience, even more traumatic than life's already been. You know what I mean? Right. So, and living the life of an artist, the artist's way is part of that even if you're a bricklayer, even if you work in a cubicle, you still have control over who you are. You know what I mean? What kind of persona do you emit? What kind of vibe and energy do you give off? How helpful are you to the conditions around you in the office when you walk into if you're in a cubicle type scenario and you walk into the shared quarters where everybody makes their lunch and stuff like that, and somebody's left a bunch of crap all over the counter, and you take your sandwich out and you look at it and you're like, look at all this, and you open up your sandwich and a bunch more lettuce flies out, and you're just like, you know what, man, screw this, look, it's already a mess, and you just walk out with your sandwich and leave it twice as messy? Yeah. Or are you the type of person that goes up there and goes, what jack off did this, and you cleaned it up and leave the place nicer than than how you walked in on it? Right. It doesn't matter if you're disgruntled about doing it or not. You do it because it's the right thing to do. Even if you walk out disgruntled, who cares? Later on that day, you're going to feel good about it. So that's my pitch for the day. Do something nice for others. And if you can't clean up after yourself, and clean up after someone else, damn it.
Well, on that note, we'll go and close off here. But I for the cameras, I want to say thank you very much for giving me your time, because I know you're very busy. So the fact you've given me an opportunity to speak with you, I really do appreciate that. So um, I'm looking forward to Day Labor. This is a project that Gary was talking about when I spoke with him a
Yeah,
number of years ago.
I'm not sure
And
how it's going to be taken. It's a very touchy subject for
right,
this. We won't get into it,
right,
but when it does come out, we can circle back. I got some other films, Place of Bones, which you can look up with Heather Graham, which is going to be
right.
a great little film, and really fantastic film. Actually, it's not even little. It looks huge on the screen. It's a fantastic film. Audrey Cummings, the director, did an incredible job. David Lipper did a great job directing. So, producing it. So I'm super excited about that one. And I have another one called I Feel Fine coming out. That's a teen angst. I'm not the teen, obviously. I'm the teen's father, but it's about teen suicide, all of that stuff. And, it's an intense drama. I think that
Right.
these are going to be some great projects coming out. We'll circle back when some of those get a little bit closer to coming to
Absolutely.
fruition.
That would be, I would love to do that here with you. But again, for the cameras, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time until the next time we chat again. Cheers to you.
Right on, man.